Heat rippled over the sand like a living thing. Radios played from towels. Kids chased each other between beach umbrellas, and the sea flashed like hammered glass. On the lawn near the sprinklers at Glenelg, 3 siblings set down their canvas bag and slipped off their sandals. Jane was 9, dependable, careful. Arna was 7 bolder, a half step ahead. Grant, just 4, copied whatever the girls did. It was Australia Day, January 26, 1966. They had taken the short bus ride in from Somerton Park that morning, the same ride they'd made before, told to be back on the noon bus. By lunchtime, in a city already wilting in the heat, Adelaide would know their names. They were seen playing in the shallows and later on the grass near Collie Reserve, where sprinklers spun in slow arcs. More than one witness remembered a man with them. Tall, lean, blonde or light brown hair, mid-30s, sun-tanned, the kind of body you got from hours in the surf. He wore swim trunks and, to strangers, acted like he belonged there. To at least one person, he said the kid's money was missing, then wandered off to change as the children waited. Not long after, around 12:15, the group was spotted walking off together. At a bakery on Mosley Street, the eldest girl stepped up to the counter and paid with a crisp 1-pound note for a meat pie and pasties. Odd, the shopkeeper thought, because their mother never sent them with that much money. It was the kind of detail that made police believe the 3 were not alone. At home, their mother watched the clock. Noon came. No knock at the door. She checked again for the 2 o'clock bus and felt the first tug of dread. When their father reached home early from his trip that afternoon, he went straight to the beach and scanned towels, dunes, the jetty, the carnival rides. Nothing. By early evening, they were at the Glenelg police station making a report. Officers searched the beach, the boat haven, the sand hills, even drained water where a tip suggested 3 children had been seen near sunset. Within 24 hours, the case dominated headlines. Police took statement after statement. A postman, someone who knew the children, said he'd seen them holding hands and laughing on Jetty Road around mid-afternoon, walking away from the beach toward home. Later, he would waver on the time, pushing the sighting closer to morning. Other people recalled a man with an airline-style bag, similar to one Jane owned. Tiny details, not enough. The sketch of the unknown man, thin face, side-parted hair, ran in newspapers beside photos of the children. The leads multiplied and then fractured. A Dutch psychic, flown in after weeks of torment, pointed to a brick kiln and spoke of shallow graves. The site was demolished. Nothing. 2 years later came letters postmarked from Victoria, one from the man, another in a child's hand said to be Jane's. They described a quiet life away and named a meeting place. A third letter accused them of betrayal and cut off all contact. Decades later, forensic work unmasked the writer. Not a guardian, not a kidnapper, but a teenager back then, playing a cruel joke. One more wound in a case already made of them. As years turned to decades, suspects surfaced like debris after a storm. One was a wealthy factory owner who lived a short walk from the beach, a man whose son later claimed he'd seen the children in their yard that afternoon. 2 workers said the man paid them to dig a long, narrow hole at his factory site that same weekend. Ground-penetrating radar found an anomaly years later. Excavations in 2013 and again in 2018 turned up animal bones and trash, and the mystery held. Even in 2025, fresh digs returned to the same patch of ground after new claims. Another week of sifting clay for answers that didn't come. Police also eyed men whose names would stain other chapters in Australian crime. A convicted child killer who drifted coastlines in the late 60s. Another, a figure tied to the so-called family murders in Adelaide, was studied and set aside. His known victims older, his patterns different, but the speculation refused to die. Files filled, tips aged, and certainty never arrived. The only constant was the image of a confident stranger on a summer lawn and 3 kids who trusted him. What the family endured can't be measured in the number of searches or the size of rewards. Their parents stayed in the same house for years, in case a knock came. They sat for interviews and followed every strange claim, the cult rumors, the whispered sightings in far-off towns, the stories that the children had grown up under different names. Time did what it does. Their mother passed first. Their father followed. The rest of Australia kept the vigil. Long before this case, children rode buses to beaches without a second thought. Afterward, Australia changed. Parents who once sent kids off with coins for a meat pie and a soda measured their afternoons in check-ins and phone calls. The country's sense of safety tilted. In parks, on sidewalks, in shopping arcades, strangers felt different. This is what a single vanishing can do. It redraws the map of ordinary life. That morning looked ordinary in the way that hurts later. Breakfast at the small table, sandals by the door, coins counted for the bus. Jane checked the time and promised they'd be back by noon. They caught the 8:45 a.m. bus for the quick 3-kilometer ride to Glenelg, a trip they'd made before without trouble. Detectives later rebuilt the hours from scraps. A shopkeeper remembered the crisp pound note in a child's hand. Witnesses said the kids seemed at ease with the man in trunks. Days earlier, Arna had told their mother that Jane had a boyfriend down the beach. No one thought it meant danger. Maybe it was the whole case in a sentence. A familiar face, trust built in little pieces, and a decision that couldn't be undone. The search grew into a citywide dragnet. Roads and flights were checked. Police and volunteers searched the Patawalonga boat haven and came up empty. Phone lines at the station rang without rest, and rumors stacked into files. The government raised a reward, eventually $1 million, because sometimes hope is the only tool left. Years added weight and names. A traveling predator, later convicted in another child's murder, placed himself in the era, then claimed to remember nothing. Another man, convicted for the abduction and murder of a teenager, was examined and set aside. A third name surfaced in old diaries and statements. His life proved rotten, but the evidence didn't hold. The pattern felt familiar. Certainty at the edges, fog in the middle. What happened after that bakery purchase is the gap no search has closed. Maybe they walked off the sand and were coaxed toward a car. Maybe they were led through a fence gate no one noticed. Maybe they were taken by water or by a plan practiced for weeks. So much has been imagined about those missing hours that you can almost see the man in the pale trunks lift the airline bag and wave for the kids to follow. Jane would have checked on the little one. Arna would have insisted she wasn't scared. Grant would have trotted to keep up. And somewhere beyond the reach of sprinklers and sunlight and the noon bus, the 3 of them crossed a line that could never be walked back. The case remains open. Every few years, a new tip drags searchers back into scrubland, warehouses or factory yards with spades, cadaver dogs, and cameras. Each time, the ground gives only silence. Still, the country waits for an ending, for a truth that can be said out loud and set against the empty seats at a family table. Until then, all we have are witnesses and weather and a city's memory of a hot holiday morning when 3 children waved, said they'd be home by noon, and never were. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. Subscribe for more true stories, if you dare.